And now I think it's high time to broaden the perspective towards the international guests that we have today. But first, I would like to invite Anja Novak to come on stage. Anja, kom maar eens. So the microphone is yours, Anja, please. Will you take this seat, maybe? Yeah? Okay. So Anja is an art historian teaching at Amsterdam University, or the University of Amsterdam, I should say, I think. And Anja, you told me in our brief conversation online last week that you have, throughout the past 12 years, had always a keen eye on land art. How did you get involved?
Well, that was actually kind of by accident, because about 15 years ago, I was invited to contribute an essay on a book, which was published on the occasion of the 40th anniversary of Robert Smithson's work, Broken Circle and Spiral Hill in Emmen. Yeah. I'd written a PhD thesis on installation art, which focused on the experience of installation art, so on how do you experience an artwork that in which you are immersed, so an experience from within, really. And with that thought in mind, I was asked to have a look at Robert Smithson's piece in Emmen. And I think I just fell in love with that artwork, and also with the site, with the location. And of course, I started reading a lot about Robert Smithson, found out that he was also a very prolific writer. I actually don't know what I like better, his earthworks or his writings, which are very special, I think, and which are also give you an idea of a very particular kind of thinking, which crosses all borders between disciplines in which people are used to think or usually think. So he just crisscrosses through all these categories, and I found that utterly fascinating. And in the years to come, I visited that artwork a couple of times, usually with groups of students, and those were always memorable visits.
Maybe good to say that the work of Robert Smithson in Emmen is not always publicly, it's not always open to the public, right?
Well, now it isn't. For many years, it was semi-open. You could make an appointment with the company that exploited the sand mine, and that was an experience in itself as well, because you had to call the company and got a grumpy person on the telephone, and you explained, well, I want to visit the piece, and then you went there, and it was a whole trip to get there. And then you would be, in a very funny, almost performative way, you would be welcomed and taken to the piece. So it was a whole experience, completely different from going to a museum and looking at an artwork in a museum space.
Yeah. Whom of you have seen it? Oh wow!
That's a lot of.
Oh, that's good, huh? Wonderful. Yes. So it's not that closed, after all. But let's hope that one day it will be open to the public continuously. Yeah? So, Anja, for you, we also talked about the ecological perspective on land art. What would you like to share with us from that ecological point of view?
Well, I think that's really a very big question right now. I thought recently I read a text by Rosalind Deutsche on public art. And she characterized public art as a question, or she underlined the fact that this is not a genre, which is, a kind of closed chapter in art history books, but it is a question that has to be posed over and over again, and it only makes sense if it is still a question, an open question. And I think that is also the case for land art. And one of the questions that it poses right now is how to make art and especially land art in a time of a planetary ecological crisis. So I don't have an answer to that, but I think it is important to address it as a question. Yeah. And I think the most interesting artworks from that perspective are the ones who actually address that question. Yeah,
I think the element of culture of Lelystad more or less says the same, right? That we need artists to hold those different angles in our hands and try to look at it in different ways. Yeah, thanks very much. So Anja, you're going to be the referent for our next speaker, which is Humberto Moro. What are you most curious about in his talk? No pressure, Humberto.
I'm just very curious to hear what he has to tell us about DIA and about the various curatorial practices and other kinds of practices that DIA employs in order to make land art and other nature and land-driven artistic practices to make them known to the public, to curate them, to maintain them. I'm just very curious to hear what he has to say. Yeah.
So take your seat. Afterwards, Anja will come back and interview Humberto. I guess we have a lot to learn from you. So I would like to introduce our next speaker. We're really honored to have you here. Humberto Moro. He is the Deputy Director of Program, I have to say, well, of course, of DIA Art Foundation, where he oversees the exhibitions, publications, learning and engagement departments. And in the next 40 minutes, he will take the stage to tell us more about DIA, about the program, and about how you look at the future in the context of our contemporary society. So please have a warm round of applause for Humberto Moro.
Thank you so much. While I set up, I have some news for Anne and Martine. You shared a glass of water with me too, so I will pour myself a new one. I do have all my vaccines, so no need to worry. Thank you, everyone. My name is Humberto Moro. I'm Deputy Director of DIA Art Foundation. I am originally from Mexico, and I'm currently based in New York City. And I'm so thrilled to be here with you today. I want to thank everyone for making your way up to here. I know many people took trains and or drove, so thank you for being here. I want to thank, of course, Land Art Lives 2024, Martine and Anne for the kind invitation and for being such wonderful champions of land art. Your energy is incredibly inspiring. Thank you. I also want to thank everyone that has been part of this smaller group that has been coordinated by the Mondrian Funds. I want to thank HACO. Together, we've established in the past week a kind of little family, and we'd spend countless hours in a bus and cross sites on the Netherlands. Thank you so much, Lisa, Alex, Marike, and Johannes. We had incredible adventures in this past week, and I thank you for your generosity. I also want to thank Liv Kuniverti from the Art Foundation, who helped me putting this presentation together. And now I think it's necessary to start this talk with an acknowledgement of both the historical framework in which we are working as cultural producers, as well as the incredibly complex social and political conditions in which we exist today. We must recognize the different forms of displacement, extraction, genocides, and continued oppression through systemic inequity and racism, past and present, very present, unfortunately. So we're all very privileged and lucky to be here. I think most of the questions and recounts I have for you today revolve around a commitment to rethinking hierarchies and through thinking about land art and land as a methodology through the lens of decolonial, feminist, queer, and indigenous perspectives, as well as thinking about land while normalizing care, empathy, and sustainability. So with that in mind, I will tell you a little bit more of who I am and what kinds of questions were formative to me in my understanding of what are the dynamics in which we can consider interactions between art and land. This is a beautiful depiction of the Barranca de Huentitan, a breathtaking canyon near Guadalajara, Jalisco, the city where I was born in West Mexico. And this canyon is known for its dramatic cliffs and rich cultural history, and it serves as both a natural wonder and a source of inspiration. Dr. Atl, born Gerardo Murillo, was a pivotal figure in Mexican art and celebrated for his vibrant landscapes that capture the essence of the Barranca. His innovative use of form often reflects the interplay between nature and abstraction, urging viewers to appreciate the beauty and complexity of this locale. As he famously said, the landscape is a living thing. It breathes and transforms. And this is 1929, so these ideas in a way are not new. This sentiment underscores the canyon's dynamic qualities, making it an ideal subject for exploration through art. Fast forward to the 2000s, more specifically between 2004 and 2005, there was a proposal to establish a Guggenheim Museum in Guadalajara, spearheaded by local officials and cultural advocates seeking to enhance the city's cultural landscape. Key actors in this initiative included the Guggenheim Foundation, which was exploring opportunities to expand its global presence under the directorships of Thomas Krenz at the time. And guess what was the site they chose for the museum to exist? Yes, you're right, the Barranca de Huentitan. Local artists and cultural organizations supported the idea, viewing it as a means to elevate contemporary art in the region. However, the proposal faced challenges, including funding, logistical, and what I remember was a huge local opposition from community members who questioned the project's impact. Ultimately, these factors led to the cancellation of the plan. In the same year, 2005, Mario Garcia Torres, a Mexican artist, living then in LA, traveled to the canyon to shoot on Super 8 the work Open Letter to Dr. Atl from the same year, which is, quote, a video that explores memory and speculation through a one-way epistolary exchange with the Mexican painter Gerardo Murillo, who signed his work under the name Dr. Atl. The film was produced in the wake of the Guggenheim's aborted plans to build a branch in the Barranca de Oblatos, a Mexican landscape near Guadalajara that figures prominently in Dr. Atl's work. Juxtaposing the historical work of Dr. Atl and the Guggenheim's expansionist global vision, Garcia Torres allows this landscape to deliver its own account of the displacement and transformation that would have been imposed on it through forms of cultural appropriation, end quote. When I first saw this work 20 years ago, it moved me to my core. Along with Mario's work, I started thinking about who has the right to be in a place? Who gets to say what the land needs? What is or should be the role of neighbors, artists, or institutions regarding land? With those questions and many more, I'll move to talk about DIA. DIA is a very specific institution. It doesn't exist in the format that other institutions do. It's not a monolith. It's both an idea and many places. It's multi-sided. DIA was founded in New York City in 1974 by Philippa de Menil, Heiner Frederick, and Helen Winkler to help artists achieve visionary projects that might not otherwise be realized because of scale or scope. To suggest the institution's role in enabling such ambitions, they selected the name DIA, taken from the Greek word meaning through. Currently, we care for 12 sites and locations. We use the nomenclature to differentiate the locations, which host temporary exhibitions, and the site-specific works, which we care for. And those are the Beacon, which is our landmark institution that we're most known for, and the New York sites, the Chelsea, the 7,000 Oaks installation by Joseph Beuys, also in Chelsea, the Broken Kilometer, and New York Art Room by Walter de Maria, a Times Square installation by Max Neuhaus, Dia Bridgehampton and the Dan Flavin Art Institute in Bridgehampton, the Spiral Jetty by Robert Smithson and Sun Tunnels by Nancy Hall in Utah, the Lightning Field in New Mexico, the Vertical Kilometer by Walter de Maria in Kassel, Germany, and more recently, the Appreciation by Cameron Rowland in Edisto Island in South Carolina. I will speak today about a selection of our historical artworks, primarily from the 70s, and I will fast forward to the last decade to speak about the kind of different paradigm in terms of understanding Earth from a different perspective, as a subject, as something that is feminine, sacred, as a collaborator, as a methodology. Amongst the artists associated with Dia is Walter de Maria, whose works often challenges perceptions of space and nature. His interactions with galleries Heiner Friedrich were fundamental in shaping his career. De Maria once remarked, "Art is a way of seeing, it creates new perspectives." His installation, Earth Room, exemplifies this philosophy, inviting viewers to engage with the materiality of Earth itself, thereby prompting a deeper reflection on our relationship with the environment. The New York Art Room in 1977 is the third Art Room sculpture executed by the artist, the first being in Munich in 1968, which is the image that you're seeing. The second was installed later in Darmstadt in West Germany in 1974. The first two works they no longer exist. The New York Art Room has been on long-term view to the public since 1977. This work was commissioned and is maintained by Dia Art Foundation to this date. The artist fills the space with 222 cubic yards of earth in a depth of 22 inches, creating an interior earth sculpture. Compelled by how the work's formal simplicity engenders such a commanding physical presence, Heiner Friedrich, Faria Friedrich, then Philippa de Menil, and Helen Winkler Fossig, in close consultation with the artist, determined that this work should remain on permanent view as a Dia site. And I'm putting some emphasis on the word permanence, which is fundamental to how we view our mission at Dia. Friedrich then donated the gallery space to Dia, after which it was renovated by architect Richard Gluckman to De Maria's specifications and to support the permanent display of the work. The exhibition reopens at 141 Wooster Street on New York in 1980 and remains on view to this day. Something to note is that some of the institutional efforts that we put in the past couple years have included renovated the AC system of the site. Before this, we had to close during the summer, so you wouldn't be able to visit this artwork because of the summer temperatures. But now you're able to visit the site year-round. Something that I like to bring to your attention, which is also very telling about the conditions in which artworks were done in the 70s, particularly in 77 with this work, is the way in which artists spoke about their own artworks. So this is the description that's coming directly from Walter de Maria, something that is obviously very linked to conceptual art, that is very factual and is also kind of mechanical. You can see that the description of the work is as follows: an interior earth sculpture, 250 cubic yards of earth, 3,600 square feet of floor space, 22-inch depth of material, a total weight of sculpture of 127,300 kilos. That is the information that the artist wants us to have. And this will stand in contrast to how artists express themselves today. The lightning field followed the success of the Earth Room. The Maria continued to experiment with scale and perception through works like the Vertical Kilometer in Kassel, the Broken Kilometer in New York. Each installation invites the viewers to reflect on distance and experience, further solidifying his legacy as a master of environmental art. He believed that art must break boundaries. It must challenge the limits of perception. The lightning field from 1977, situated in a remote area of the high desert of western New Mexico, it's a work comprised of 400 polished stainless steel poles installed in a grid array measuring 1 mile by 1 kilometer. The poles, 2 inches in diameter and averaging 20 feet, are spaced 200 feet apart and have solid pointed tips that define a horizontal plane. And Walter de Maria in 1980 said, "The invisible is real." So with this grid, he's making both the lines and the landscape alive. Now, the experience and the journey is also part of land art. This is the lightning field office in Quemado, New Mexico, where the DIA staff greets you and subsequently take you to the lightning field. The location of the field is undisclosed as per the artist's wishes, as well as we ask visitors to refrain to take any photographs. De Maria himself in life approved all the images that you see today, and those are the ones that are distributed for press and publications. I mention this again because the notion of journey here is important. The path, the time, and the feeling. As Walter de Maria said, isolation is the essence of land art. Then, the same year, in 1977, the Vertical Earth Kilometer was done, located in Friedrichsplatz in Kassel, Germany. This is a 1 kilometer long solid brass round rod of 5 centimeters in diameter, and its full length is inserted into the ground, with its top reaching flush to the surface of the earth. A red sandstone plate, 2 meters by 2 meters squares, surrounds the brass rod flat circular top, positioning the circle directly in the square center, in front of the Museum Fredericianum, where you can see the 4 footpaths whose intersection marks the sculpture location. And if you're there, you would only see a tiny little dot on the floor, which often passes unnoticed. As a companion to this piece, permanently installed, De Maria created the Broken Kilometer later in 1979, located at 393 West Broadway in New York City. This work is composed of 500 2-meter-long solid brass rods, each with the same diameter as the rod used for the Vertical Kilometer, arranged in 5 parallel rows of 100 rows each. Now, fast forward to 2003, we come to Dia Beacon. And it's very interesting because Martin defined land art as an impulse to exit the exhibition space. And this part of my presentation kind of arguments the opposite. Can land art be an impulse to bring land into the museum? Can a museum be land art? This is a building that was built in 1929. It was originally built by the National Biscuit Company, otherwise known as Nabisco, and it was originally designed as a box printing factory. In 2003, upon the invitation of Len Riggio and Michael Goban, Robert Irwin made subtle interventions into the building's lighting and developed a symmetrical floor plan to ensure that the galleries are presented in a non-hierarchical way and without a single overarching historical or chronological narrative. Thinking of Dia Beacon as an artwork in and of itself, This building exists in the land of the Hudson Valley as a living, breathing entity that is contingent to daylight and subsequently hosts other artworks inside. We are what they call a daylight museum, and in fact, during winter, we close an hour earlier. Specifically envisioned for the displays of the works in Dia's collection, Irwin's Designs maintains the character of the original structure with the sole addition of an entry vestibule, which are the doors that you can see in the picture, and ensures that Dia Beacon expansive galleries are entirely lit by natural light. Irwin determines that because Dia Beacon is located along the Metro-North Railroad and many visitors would be traveling from the city, for them, the experience of the museum starts at the Grand Central Terminal, with the departure point of the train. He envisions the museum as a sequence of experience, including riding the linear corridor of the train tracks up the Hudson River, descending into Dia Beacon's forecourt garden, and entering the galleries. Then, in 2015, around the time that our current director, Jessica Morgan, came on board, there was a project by Alora y Calzadilla titled Puerto Rican Light, Cueva Vientos. And let's say this is the new generation of land works that Dia has been fostering in the past decade. It is a work that takes as point of departure Dan Flavin's Puerto Rican Lights to Jeannie Blake from 1965. The duo situated the work in a natural limestone cave near the southern coast of Puerto Rico in El Convento Natural Protected Area. The work reiterated the artist's acute interest in exploring the realms of transmission, spectatorship, and the meaning of natural resources. The work functions in such way that a solar converter is used to capture and store the sunlight in Puerto Rico, providing a renewable energy source that powered Dan Flavin's work for the duration of the installation. The project was developed by the artist over 4 years of research and collaboration with Dia and organized with 2 regional partners, Museo de Arte Ponce para la Naturaleza and the nonprofit unit of the Conservation Trust of Puerto Rico. This was the first long-term installation commission outside of the continental US since Joseph Boy's 7,000 Oaks in 1982 and Walter de Maria's Vertical Kilometer in 1977. The work extends Dia's commitment to supporting work sited in the landscape and considers the socio-political meaning of the environment within a 21st century context. Now, Nancy Holt's sun tunnels, which were made between 1973 and 1976, are brought into the conversation in this part of my talk because they were acquired in 2018. They are located in the Great Basin Desert in northwestern Utah, and they're composed of 4 concrete cylinders that are 18 feet in length and 9 feet in diameter. They are arranged in an open cross format and aligned to frame the sun on the horizon during the summer and winter solstices. In 2018, Dia Foundation acquired sun tunnels with the support from the Holt-Smithson Foundation. Holt remarked, "The idea for sun tunnels became clear to me while I was part in the desert watching the sun rising and settling, keeping the time of the earth. Sun tunnels can exist only in that particular space. The work evolved out of its sight." And then she went on, "To be in the tunnels is to be in a moment of time." The acquisitions of sun tunnels in Dia's collection underscores its significance in the canon of land art, emphasizing the exploration of time, space, and human perception, and also introduces the first land work in Dia's collection created by a woman. Now, sun tunnels is cared for in deep partnerships, and this is a key to my talk today, the word partnerships. DIA partners with the Center for Land Use Interpretation, the Holt-Smith Foundation, and the Utah Museum of Fine Arts at the University of Utah to further advocate for sun tunnels, as well as Spiral Jetty by Robert Smithson. This active conversation with local partners and collective forms of care and attention is building new models of how works like this can be researched, communicated, and cared for. Back to the exhibition space. Lucy Raven Ready Mix reopened DIA Chelsea after its renovation in 2021. Lucy Raven practices encompasses animation, moving image, installation, sculpture, and sound. Her work frequently engages with the United States' historically complex role in global commerce and infrastructure as it unfolds within its Western landscape. Ready Mix is an immersive installation featuring a 45-minute film shot over 2 years at a concrete plant in central Idaho. The work addresses the formation, depiction, and surveillance of landscape and civic spaces, proposing abstraction as a tool for perceiving and reperceiving these sites. Ready Mix records the excruciating transformation of mineral aggregates and cement binders into one of the world's most ubiquitous building materials, the ready mix concrete. The film's extra-wide aspect ratio references the surveying of origins of the anamorphic format, which was developed during the First World War to give military tank operators a more expansive view of the terrain. The format later became a staple of Western genre films. Ready Mix collapses this perspectival depth into the visual flatness and material density, and in doing so, it encounters ways in which Westerns traditionally frame the landscape to perpetuate the myth of the so-called frontier as a receding, empty, and untamed. Ready Mix also expands on Raven's preoccupation with the extraction of natural resources, changes of material states, and manufacturing processes that generate physical substrates for today's interconnected economies. Staged with the context of the rapidly changing Chelsea neighborhood in New York City, where the new condominium and office constructions are redefining the cityscape, Ready Mix also addresses the relentless thrust of urban and suburban development. More recently, in DIA Chelsea, we had El Abrazo by Delcy Morelos, who has been working across painting, sculpture, and installation for the past 30 years. Delcy employs earth as her primary material for over a decade now, and she constructs encompassing environments of geometrically abstract forms and dispersions. She makes muds from local and regionally sourced soils and clays, attending as much to formal characteristics such as color, texture, and to organic properties related to soil, health, and uses them as paints and sculptural materials. This exhibition was also Delcy's first US museum show. And she's drawing on the cosmologies of ancestral cultures, particularly the Andean and Amazonian, as well as her own. Morelos explores the sustaining power of mud in its many forms as source of life and sustenance. This particular installation was created for DIA Chelsea, and it comprised 2 immersive, multisensory installations. She asserts, there is a difference between seeing and entering. When you enter, you experience, like a symbiotic relationship. You allow yourself to be permeated by that which you are permeating. And in this particular structure, you could enter through the space in the middle that you can see in the image. Additionally, there were 2 different scents that were designed for this work in a way that it activated the olfactory experience in a way that she was decentralizing sight as the primary focus of our artistic experience. Aside El Abrazo, there was Cielo Terrenal, where portions of the of the floors and walls were coated with a mixture from soil, from the Black Dirt region of the Hudson Valley near Dia Beacon. So there is this connection to Beacon, distinguished by its black color and considered amongst the most fertile in the region. This installation was the latest in Morelos' ongoing series of earth line rooms, which render the monochrome architectural while addressing the cyclical relationship between water and land. The dark substance against the walls, about 4 feet, it's a horizon line created by this mud painted. It echoes the high water mark left in the wake of Hurricane Sandy in 2012, when the Hudson River flooded the empty galleries. So again, there is a relationship between a natural event and the exhibition space, and it connects you between the inside and the outside. Within this cavernous setting, a vast arrangement of stacks and loose piles were laid out, suggested the topography of an exposed riverbed, cultivated farmland, or an archaeological excavation. The work also recalls minimal sculptures that have their own complex relationships to ritual architecture, such as the alternating containment and openness of Richard Serra's Torcalypsis from 1987, and particularly, as I've been mentioning, to Walter de Maria's New York Art Room from 1977. And at this point, and attending to Anja's initial question and to what I was mentioning in the beginning of the talk, how can land and earth and dirt can become a methodology? And I think key to think about that is the idea of the rear view methodology, to have the past always in consideration where we're looking into the future. At DIA, we're an incredibly self-reflective institution where we are constantly being reminded of ourselves of our historical works in order to create new commissions and conversations with artists. Before, I brought to the conversation the way in which Walter de Maria referred to his artwork. And this, in contrast, is a poem that Delcy wrote in 2021 for her exhibition Moradas in Buenos Aires. And it is a poem that we read in the space, in the Chelsea, as a collective performance. It is both a node and a poem to the earth, and I'm gonna read it. Truth and bodies buried, hidden between the mountains, the tragic movement and petrified life. There is nowhere to cry. Darkness earth, body earth, fingers earth, knee earth, chest earth, tears earth, pain earth, meat earth, bones earth, toes earth, anguish earth, hurt earth, back earth, cold earth, heat earth, ribs earth, blood earth, relationships earth, saliva earth, ears earth, desires earth, voice earth, hair earth, feelings earth, smile earth, nails earth, ears earth, hands earth, elbows earth, throats earth, lungs earth, kidneys earth, memories earth, eyes earth, arms earth, thighs earth, ribs earth, fear earth, head earth, rage earth, shouting earth. So much inertia in rhythmic rupture suffocates. Loneliness earth, mother earth, father earth, son earth, wife earth, daughter earth, husband earth, sister earth, brother earth, stillness earth, wind earth, future earth, bladder earth, nose earth, lips earth, loneliness earth, intestines earth, sadness earth, neck earth, mouth earth, head earth, tears earth, skin earth, questions earth, shapes earth, lips earth, guts earth, impotence earth, tendons earth, foot earth, legs earth, weeping earth, nape earth, brain earth, face earth, word earth, the last word earth, death earth, earth, so much earth. Now, I must highlight one of our latest exhibitions with American artist Meg Webster, whose work celebrates the intersections of art and nature. Her exhibition at Dia Beacon reflects on her ongoing exploration of environment themes, encouraging viewers to reconnect with the natural world. As Webster notes, art should remind us of our roots it must cultivate a relationship with nature. Her installations invite a contemplative response, emphasizing the importance of ecological awareness in contemporary art. This exhibition further expands my questions. Can land be a state of mind? Can land be a methodology? Can land be a subject in which we all exist? Lastly, I will speak about our most recent site, the 12th addition to the constellation of Dia's sites and locations, Cameron Rowland's Depreciation. It is based on the concept of 40 acres and a mule as reparations for slavery, which originates from General William Tecumseh Sherman's Special Fields Order No. 15, ordered on January 16 of 1865, to address concerns over potential uprisings among ex-slaves following his army. The order designated land along the coast of South Carolina and Florida for freed people, stipulating that each family would receive up to 40 acres. However, in 1866, President Andrew Johnson rescinded this offer, returning the land to former Confederate owners and leaving ex-slaves to choose between sharecropping or eviction, often under threat of arrest. Although some former slaves challenged these repossessions by the 1870s, most land had reverted to its previous owners, undermining the Freedmen's Bureau's intents to promote black ownership. In contrast, a 1-acre piece of land from the Maxey Place plantation was purchased in 2018 by a nonprofit created by Rowland to impose a restrictive covenant rendering legally unusable. This action questions how land can exist outside the property regime established by slavery, asserting that repatriation can challenge existing notions of property rather than merely redistributing it. This is a conceptual site that is not for visitation, and depreciation entered Dia as a site in the form of a long-term loan with the artist. This format brings not only the dematerialization of land artwork as such, but also creates new forms of relating to the work and the artist. Thank you so much.
Dankjewel, Humberto. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Anja, may I invite you to pick up your task as a reference for Humberto's talk in order to catch some questions from the audience. Okay?
Thank you so much, Humberto. Does this work? Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. What an inspiring talk you gave. And what a wonderful opportunity to get an idea of the whole range of what Dia Art Foundation does. There are so many things. So many things to talk about. There is. I just at the end of your talk, I wrote down a couple of terms that kept keeping back in your talks and also in the things that were said earlier today. And I think that the term that stuck to me most, or that seemed to me to be a kind of overarching concept maybe that connects many of the practices, artistic practices, but also curational practices that you talked about, is relationality. Mm-hmm. It seemed to me that whatever Dia does and whatever the artists do, that Dia invites to show their work, to care for their work, to support their work. It all seems to revolve around relationality. Is that a crazy thought?
I don't think it's crazy. I think relationality also exists within a substrate, which is time. So I think relationality is linked to time because those relationships span over time. I would say Dia is about time. I would say that relationality spans over time. We're never in a rush. We are very clear that we don't have to be everything for everyone. We work in a very particular historical framework, which is art from the 60s and the 70s. People often think that we only do minimalism, but we do much more. We do land art, we do conceptual art, we do pop art, and we establish connections with contemporary practice that look into the history of those practices. So the way in which we engage with both artworks and artists, is always artist-centered, and it's always over time. So, for instance, think about the exhibitions that I was speaking about in the Chelsea. They are a year-long exhibition, which again goes back to this idea of how can an exhibition be related to the environment? How can you come back to an exhibition and look at the same artwork in the light of winter, in the sun reflected in the snow, in the spring morning, in the night, in an early night, and that is the way in which we think about how time plays a central role in that relationality that you're talking about. Often these conversations take years with artists. We develop these projects over time. The relationship with our partners date from decades before. So there is, I think, an element of time that is key to those how we build those relationships not only with the artists but also with the public. Think about, for instance, the Art Room, which has been on view since the 70s. We have people that have been coming to the Art Room once per week for years. So that relationality only can be deployed over the substrate of time.
Thanks. That's very fascinating, and I think also very important to mention, because land art is often associated with space and place and location, but time is a very important element and very important factor. Yeah. And I think that is also, especially in times where things seem to speed up constantly, this is actually a very important value, isn't it, to kind of hold on to, like land art, like a form of slow art, which indeed develops over time, but also demands an extended experience, and also demands coming back. And I think that the fact that visitors actually do come back, and sometimes so often actually, to want to see the same work again and again in a different light, at a different time, in a different mood, maybe in a different state of materiality. That is such a wonderful, I think, a kind of resistance to maybe the example of the Guggenheim Foundation. Want to, in a way, maybe promote fast experience of art more than a slow one, and an experience that is also tied to a geography.
Completely. And I think land art, either in the wild, in an open space, or inside a gallery, or in an idea, demands you to be present, and demands you to be aware of change. And what is this change? Change is what Smithson spoke often about, which is entropy. This idea that all things tend to equalize, that energy tends to become equal, and that things will dissipate in a way. And there is You can link that to energy, you can link that to heat transmission, but you can also link that to death or to the pass of time. And there's nothing, there's no bigger reality check to stand in front of the spiral jetty and see where the water line is now, or how the rocks are covered in sand now, and how the work is slowly changing and dissipating. And that kind of work requires you to come to terms with a reality that's in front of you. And I think one of the things that we're very conscious at DIA is how to transport that experience into the different exhibition modalities that we have, both inside the exhibition space and outside. How to offer an experience to people that make you aware of that change. And I want to be clear that I spoke mainly about artworks and exhibitions, but we also do so much more. We have a learning program that has over 1,000 events per year. And that means that we are constantly working with different communities in this idea of change and time. We recently had in the summer a group of young adults that went on a field trip to the lightning field. And this is a program titled Fieldwork that we've been carrying for 2 years. And this group also comes out of our teens program, which is a landmark program that we have in the learning department. So there is a concatenation of the experiences that we offer that are not only limited to the viewing of the artwork, but also to experiencing the artwork through learning environments, through publications, and through, again, the collaboration with our partners. I cannot stress how important it is. We actually had a group of colleagues from DIA was in Utah last Friday in a convening to speak about our Utah sites with our partners. So that idea of communal and conversation, it's so important to think about how we can care for works of land art.
That's great, and I think that's actually something that should be put in the box. That will be carried home by the people who dedicate themselves to supporting and further developing the land art collection here in Flevoland.
Yes, to talk about time now, but yeah. But I'm afraid I have to. I was wondering whether there are some of you in the audience who might want to grab this last chance to, yes, for a question. So please pass on the mic. Could you pass it on? And speak closely.
Hello, Jos Bregman, is that clear? I was wondering, seeing all the clay used in the artworks, and actually for all land art being made, someone said landscape is a living organism. Do you ask permission to take Earth away from the land?
Well, I assume that by permission you mean the current owners of the land, but
you were mentioning that it's about ownership. Land art is about ownership.
The land as an organism.
Right. You mean permission to the land? Well, yes. There's different ways in which I think we think about that relationship with dirt and earth. One, for instance, is through conversations with indigenous groups. We are in a close collaboration with the Lanepa Center, particularly in New York, and we have been developing a relationship with them, which are the former occupants of that land. In particular, the dirt that came out of a land for Delsey's project came out of Dia Beacon, which is our property. So in a way, we were permitting the use of that land. And also, the kind of like the third part of that conversation is the artist. Delsey has an incredible story about, she had an installation at the Venice Biennale, not this one, but the past one. And she made this mountain of dirt. And a piece of that dirt wouldn't stick, and the technicians were having a lot of issues to make that piece stick, and she came and she spoke to the dirt, and then the dirt sticked. So yeah, there are both physical, operational, and metaphysical relationships to the dirt that we or the artist establish. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. It's a pretty nice question because, of course, in the Netherlands we now have the Embassy of the North Sea, for example, which is about the rights of nature. Mm-hmm. What does the land say? I think it's a good question. Okay, Anja, shall we take one more question? Yes? Would that be okay? Yeah. I have to choose. I'm so sorry. Ladies first.
Hi. I was curious, after your emphasis of the use of natural light in the one site, can you tell a little bit more about the choice for specific that?
That's a wonderful question, thank you. I think that the site itself allowed for that. This was a factory built by this company, Nabisco, which were kind of like a cookie empire in the early 20th century. And there were 3 of these factories in the country, and only Dia Beacon remains, the other 2 are lost. But they were the same building exactly in different states. And this building has, I think, 40,000 square feet of skylights. And it was at the time, in 1929, it was the largest building with natural light in the country. And this was to see color because there were printing boxes, which is quite interesting because I think it's very poetic that the building somehow remained with the mission of using natural light to see. So the fact that the building already had this immense amount of natural light was thanks to the origin of the factory itself that then Robert Irwin decided. I mean, that was one of the selling factors of why initially the then director of the institution and the board president decided to acquire this property to host Dia's collection.
Yes, thank you, Alberto. Anja, would you like to wrap up the conversation so we can have a coffee?
Well, well, I would like to thank you for the wonderful examples that you've given. And I have a lot more questions, but we can also discuss them over a cup of coffee. I think there are so many beautiful examples that you've shown in how Dia tries to cope with the many difficult issues that are involved in the making and the collecting and the maintaining of land art. Also with the final question that was posed, I thought that's also a wonderful way actually of dealing with questions of sustainability, mm-hmm. which is quite problematic in museums. Museums leave an enormous carbon footprint mm-hmm. in order to preserve art. So I think you gave a lot of wonderful examples of how institutions could think about solutions for these problems. So thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Yes. Humberto Moro and Anja Novak. Yes, thanks so much.